Commander Jake Dalton stood against the viewport of the Titan research outpost, watching the storm rage over Saturn's largest moon. Electrical storms were common here, but tonight the sky seemed especially furious, as if protesting an uninvited intruder. That thought had barely formed when a brilliant streak cut through the tumultuous clouds of spacecraft, its hull ablaze with the friction of an uncontrolled descent. It hit the ground somewhere on the expansive icy plains with a violent grace that hinted at advanced, albeit failing, technology. Jake's training kicked in. Grabbing his emergency gear, he sent a quick distress signal to Earth before suiting up. The outpost was meant for observation and light research, not rescue missions, but he couldn't ignore the potential for first contact or the need for aid. He raced across the rocky, ice-covered terrain in his heavy rover, pushing the vehicle to its limits. The crash site was a grim spectacle of scattered debris, glowing eerily in the dim Saturnian light. The ship was unlike any design he had seen before, sleek and metallic with parts shimmering under layers of frost. As he approached, his headlights caught a figure stumbling away from the wreckage. The alien, because it could only be an alien, was slender, her skin reflecting the light with an opalescent sheen. She was dragging what appeared to be a high-tech lifeline, a complex device, possibly a datapod, clutched tightly against her chest. Ignoring the whirling wind and piercing cold, Jake left the rover's safety and approached her. Up close, her form was distinctly humanoid, with two luminous eyes that flickered with intelligence and fear. She said something in a flowing language he couldn't understand, but her tone carried an unmistakable plea for help. Deciding quickly, Jake helped her into the rover. She was light, almost frail, but her grip on the data pod was unwavering. As he started the rover and turned back towards the outpost, his onboard sensors chirped a warning, several fast-approaching signatures. Pirate corsairs, no doubt attracted by the crash. The storm was no longer the only threat they faced. As Jake navigated the treacherous terrain back to safety, his mind raced with questions about this mysterious alien princess and the interstellar incident he had just become a part of. The action had started, and there was no going back. Jake revved the engine of the rover, pushing it to its limits as the ominous blips on his radar multiplied. Corsairs, known for their ruthlessness in scavenging any wreck within the asteroid belt and beyond, were closing in fast. Strap, and he shouted over the roar of the engine and the howl of the wind. The alien princess, understanding the urgency if not the words, secured herself and the data pod into the passenger seat. Her eyes, wide with a mix of fear and resolve, never left the radar screen. Jake maneuvered the rover with practiced ease, yet the terrain of Titan fought back with icy patches and unexpected craters. In the rearview display, the first of the Corsair ships came into view, a bulky cruiser armed with surface-to-air launchers. "They want what you have," Jake said, nodding toward the pod. The princess looked at it, her expression hardening. "Important," she managed to say in broken English, her voice clear amidst the chaos. The chaos using the storm to their advantage, Jake drove into a thick mist of icy particles. The visibility dropped to nearly zero, a risk, but also a temporary cloak. The rover sensors pinged continuously, the Corsair ships weaving in and out of sensor range as they too struggled with the terrain and weather. Suddenly the rover jolted as a missile skimmed past, exploding against a nearby ice ridge. Shards of ice pelted the rover's armored exterior. Jake swerved narrowly, avoiding a second missile. "Hang on," he warned, before making a sharp turn into a narrow canyon, its entrance nearly concealed by the storm's fury. The canyon walls provided some cover, and Jake slowed just enough to maintain control without losing speed. The princess fiddled with her data pod, her fingers dancing over its surface with purpose. The device emitted a pulsating light, and then the canyon around them lit up with a holographic display, a map. There, she pointed to a structure indicated on the map. Not far ahead, it was an old research bunker, abandoned but possibly still shielded enough to hide them. As they neared the bunker, the radar showed the Corsair airships breaking off. Confused by the sudden disappearance of their quarry's heat signature, the bunker, it seemed, still had operational stealth tech. They drove inside, the heavy doors grinding shut behind them with a thud that echoed their temporary safety. Inside, the dim lighting flickered on, revealing rows of dusty equipment and long-forgotten experiments. Jake finally turned to the princess, who was carefully placing the data pod on a makeshift table. "Okay, we need to talk," he said, catching his breath. "Who are you really, and why are the Corsair after you?" The princess looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I am Seraphine of the Nari," she began, her voice steadier. "And what I carry can alter the fate of galaxies." She paused, gauging his reaction. "And I believe you are the only one who can help me get to the Galactic Union safely." The stakes were higher than Jake had imagined, and now there was no turning back. They were in this together, caught in a game of cosmic significance. In the dim light of the abandoned bunker, Seraphine, the Naria princess shared her story with Jake. Her kingdom, located in a sector of space unknown to humans, had been teetering on the brink of civil war exacerbated by unseen manipulations. My father is the king, she explained, and we discovered a plot to overthrow him orchestrated by our own council members in collusion with pirate factions. Those corsairs included she gestured toward the now silent radar screen. Jake, who'd been through enough covert operations to recognize the gravity of her situation, listened intently. So this data pod, he pointed at the device, contains proof of the conspiracy. Sci-Fi nodded. Yes, and much more. It holds evidence of corruption, secret alliances, and exploitation plans against other peaceful planets, including potential targets in human territories. The weight of her words hung heavily in the air. The implications were vast, potentially dragging Earth into an interstellar conflict. We need to get this information to the galactic Union, Jake concluded, understanding the broader risks, but how our current location isn't exactly conducive to diplomatic meetings. He added, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. Seraphine activated the data pod again, its surface lighting up with star maps and encrypted channels. I have contacts in the Union. If we can reach Enceladus, we can request asylum and protection. From there, we can safely transmit the data. Enceladus, Jake murmured. Saturn's moon was not just a neighbor, it was a hub for Union activities in the solar system. But we'll need a real ship, not just this rover. Their eyes met, an unspoken agreement forming between them. They would work together to escape Titan, reach Enceladus, and expose the conspiracy. First, we upgrade this rover for space travel, Jake suggested, his mind racing through the logistics. The outpost has old but functional tech we can salvage. Seraphine nodded. Her resolve is clear as the data streams flowing from her pod, and I can help. Invar technology is compatible with most human systems. They spent the next hours planning using Seraphine's advanced knowledge and Jake's engineering skills. They began retrofitting the rover with an array of salvaged outpost tech, including thrusters and life support systems. Their task was daunting, yet the urgency of their mission fueled their progress as they worked. The bond between human and alien solidified, a partnership based on mutual trust and a shared goal. Seraphine taught Jake how to interface with Naria technology, while he showed her how to navigate the political and technological landscape of human space. By the time they had prepared the rover for a rudimentary space launch, Jake and Seraphine had formed an unlikely but formidable team. Ready at last, they set their sights on Enceladus, where the real test of their alliance and the fate of their worlds would be decided. Under the cover of Titan's ceaseless storms, Jake and Commander Jake Dalton stood against the viewport of the Titan research outpost, watching the storm rage over Saturn's largest moon. Electrical storms were common here, but tonight the sky seemed especially furious, as if protesting an uninvited intruder. That thought had barely formed when a brilliant streak cut through the tumultuous clouds. A spacecraft, its hull ablaze with the friction of an uncontrolled descent. It hit the ground somewhere on the expansive icy plains with a violent grace that hinted at advanced, albeit failing, technology. Jake's training kicked in. Grabbing his emergency gear, he sent a quick distress signal to Earth before suiting up. The outpost was meant for observation and light research, not rescue missions, but he couldn't ignore the potential for first contact or the need for aid. Seraphine launched their makeshift spacecraft, formerly a rover, toward Enceladus. The craft, cobbled together with hybrid technology, shuddered as it broke through the moon's thin atmosphere into the silence of space. The trip was risky. Space between the moons was patrolled by Corsair scouts and Union surveillance alike. To evade detection, Jake piloted a long trajectory, is masked by electromagnetic anomalies in Saturn's rings. Seraphine monitored their systems, adjusting the alien tech seamlessly to work with the human components. Their dynamic was efficient, a testament to the desperate hours spent together in the bunker. As Enceladus loomed larger in their viewport, Seraphine contacted her Union allies using encrypted channels from the data pod. Inela Station. This is Seraphine of the Nari requesting asylum under Directive 5 of the G Galactic